Yeah.
Coming soon to a door near you, I got this poster for the new The Batman movie, and it'll be up here sooner or later. So, yeah, there's that minor news, not that any of you care. What we're here talking about today is alternate versions of a favorite comic character of mine, because sometimes you just get bored of reading the same story or, seeing the same adaptation of the character, that it's a nice change of pace when you see something different come out. You're willing to read it, and although you might not like what you read all the time, there are ones that you would say might even be definitely better than the original adaptation. And today I have 7 different adaptations of Harley Quinn that I think you should go check out for yourself, or that are just in some way different. They may have not have been touched on a humongous amount, but they're there, they exist, and they're pretty interesting, and some even more interesting than the original adaptation, which most people, when you talk about the original adaptation from the character, would take it from where it all started, on Batman the Animated Series, when she first made her appearance on the Season 1 episode, Joker's Favor, in 1992. Kind of made as a one-off character to be Joker's henchwoman, and after that episode we were never supposed to see her again. They didn't even give her a backstory. As a matter of fact, when she got caught, she said something about going back to beauty school, which, if you know the origin story and the backstory to her now, beauty school isn't even in, any story that we've read with her so far.
Beauty school's starting to look pretty good about now.
Character actually started to gain popularity slowly. They slowly brought her back in, and eventually they started giving her her own episodes. She appeared more, and now she's one of the most recognizable DC characters of all time, and one of the most recognizable comic characters of all time, to a point where she's even gotten her own solo movie. If you want to count solo movie, it's a Birds of Prey movie, but she's in there. It has a lot to do with her, so she was able to get her own, not necessarily standalone film, but her own film with her name on it. And I've gone through and read some different adaptations of this character that I find to be interesting. Some have popped up once, some are a reoccurring thing depending on what comic series you read, but these are ones that I think you should definitely go and check out if you're tired of the same Harley Quinn adaptation, which is just, she's a psychiatrist who got manipulated by the Joker into falling in love with him, and, she's still the villain, the henchwoman type. Sometimes we just want to see a different portion of the character. And these are in no particular order, so I want to get it started with one that, since, I still do music-related videos on this channel, I thought would fit well with the topic of music. And that is punk rock Harley Quinn. She has done this in many different adaptations, and in this universe, though, she doesn't go by Harley Quinn. She goes by Gigi Harlan, which, if you're a music fan and a punk fan, that is a take on the legendary punk artist Gigi Allen. So, yeah, I just found it to be cool. Her band, by the way, too, is called Skullbags. So, it's just interesting to think that the character that we've come to know and love as this more ditzy, kooky character is seen more as this tough female punk rocker. It definitely is weird because she doesn't support the blonde hair with the, pink-colored pigtails. She's got a shaved head with a mohawk that's usually purple or something like that. She's not girly, she's just kind of more badass in this sort of way. It shows the more, let's say, less feminine side of her, and it definitely is an interesting read when you go and read the comics that involve punk rock Harley Quinn. It's definitely a unique take on the character, and I think, too, the whole punk rock thing fits her well just because her attitude is definitely that of, a punk rocker. She just doesn't give a shit, she does what she wants, and that's pretty punk in itself, so it fits her very, very well. The next one is actually kind of a familiar one to many people. As a matter of fact, we were supposed to get a movie about this crew, but never did, although it could still possibly be in development, but at this point, I really don't know. And that is Gotham City Sirens Harley, because in this universe, she's still Harley Quinn, but now she's an anti-hero. She's not a villain. She's not looking to go out and do bad things all the time. She is more saving the world, saving Gotham or wherever they are, as she teams up with Poison Ivy and Catwoman here too. So she's also still not a loner, but she's away from the Joker doing her own thing, and I think it's always interesting when she's away from the Joker what you're able to write about her and where she's able to go from there. And I think the Gotham City Sirens stories have always been some of the more intriguing with her. So that is one that if you haven't checked out already, well, you've been living under a rock, but if you haven't, you should definitely check it out because you will have some good stories being told there. Then another interesting one, you get this in the comics, and you can also watch the Flashpoint Paradox animated movie, which is on HBO Max, where she is Yo-Yo. She's basically, again, a multiverse version of Harley Quinn is in this universe. Instead of Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne getting shot and killed, it was Bruce Wayne that got shot and killed. So Thomas Wayne takes up the realm as Batman, although a more violent Batman who will kill, and Martha Wayne goes insane and becomes the Joker, and of course Yo-Yo ends up being Martha Wayne henchman, and she looks a little different from Harley Quinn. She's still got the blonde hair with the pigtails and all that, but instead of the red and black aesthetic that we've come to know from Harley, it's more of a purple outfit, and it's definitely a little weird, definitely a little different, but it's interesting to see this Harley because it's like, oh, okay, well, the Joker's present, but it's not like a love thing. This is definitely more like a, full-on henchwoman type, I'll do anything for this person because, well, they're my boss, and it's just interesting. She still has the same kookiness, though, so that doesn't go away. Then, this one was kind of added later to the older TV show, and that is the 1966 version of Harley Quinn. Now, you're probably wondering, well, if she didn't exist until 1992, how could there be a 1966 version? Well, back in 2016, the original Batman, Adam West, and the original Robin, Burt Ward, came back to reprise their roles as the titular Batman and Robin, but since, they were older, they decided to do it animated. They gave their voices and did it themselves. And in the animated 2017 movie, the last one that featured Adam West's voice on it, Batman vs. Two-Face, we see not only Two-Face getting brought into the 66 universe, but Harley Quinn herself. Well, okay, they don't call her Harley Quinn in this universe, they call her Holly Quinn, but she's still a psychiatrist at their version of Arkham. They don't call it Arkham Asylum in the 66 version because, it's more kid-friendly. And in this one, we see her kind of make a quick pop-up cameo where she helps Two-Face with the whole mind control of the bad guys, this, that, and the other. So she ends up getting her costume, which is fairly similar to what we've seen in the original, but kind of more twisted to look more 60s-ish. So this one's not too far off from the original version. It's just they took it and said, okay, well, if she was around in the 60s, how would we have her look and what would we have her do? Well, this is exactly it, and it's very interesting when you think about it. Like, yeah, if she was a part of the show back then, I can see this happening. Then, this is a comic that I would definitely recommend. There's a Batman White Knight series where they go through a slew of different stories, and one of them is the Harley Quinn edition, where in this edition, Harley Quinn is a single mother raising the two twins that her and Joker, who in this universe is Jack Napier, had. Their names are Jackie and Bryce, named after Bruce Wayne, and of course, Jack Napier, her ex-husband, fiance, whatever you want to call it, she ended up killing the Joker in this universe after finding out that, well, he killed Jason Todd, and Batman just kind of lets her get away with it. Now Bruce Wayne is in jail for the so-called murder of Joker. It's a very weird story, but when you get to understand what happens is she's retired from crime fighting. She's just trying to, raise the twins herself, be at least a decent mother. And around this point in time, there's copycat killings that start to happen, and she realizes it, and the Gotham City PD comes and says, hey, we know it's not you, we need your help because there's somebody that's doing the same shit as you and the Joker, and of course you would know their next move because, well, this is fairly similar to what you did. And first she hesitates, then she says, you know what, I'm gonna help because I want this scumbag off the street. And it come to find out it's one of like the old actresses that got shunned back in the day for not being as pretty as one of the other ones. Like, again, it's a very weird concept when you think about it, but it's also perfect. It's definitely different, and I would definitely recommend this one because it tells you a lot of what happened after she, killed the Joker and what goes on after that. How really the only one that knows she killed the Joker is Batman, because the cops don't know that. But yeah, it's just an intriguing story as you see more of the hero side of Harley start to kick in here. Then in the next one we have Batman Damned. I like to call her Joker Quinn, because in this one, Joker dies, presumably by Batman's hand on accident, and she just becomes even more insane, more distraught, that she just takes up the Joker's mantle. She becomes a female Joker. I know that's what people call her now, but she literally becomes a female Joker. She goes absolutely batshit, and this is where you get more of the villain Harley, where this isn't anti-hero shit. She's just doing this because, she wants to avenge the loss of her loved one, and it can definitely get really, really disturbing at some point in time. So if you're into the more darker leaning side of these Batman stories, that is definitely one for you. One that I actually forgot to put down here that I guess I'll just count it as an honorable mention is the Harley Quinn from the Joker Harley Criminal Insanity comic, which is an interesting comic because in this one, the only connection they have is that, the Joker is very intrigued that Harley's into his work, even though he's brutally murdering people and turning it into artwork. And Harley Quinn isn't actually a psychiatrist at Arkham. She actually works for the Gotham City PD as this sort of, forensics detective and all that kind of stuff. So she doesn't have a thing for this guy. And it's just really, really interesting. Like I said, if you're more into the darker leaning side of the Batman characters, this is definitely one where, it's disturbing. Some of the visuals they show of how the Joker murdered these people, you have to shield your eyes sometimes. But the reason she's so fascinated with the case is because, the Joker, she finds out later, actually killed her girlfriend, who is assumed she looks like Pamela Isley, although I don't think they call her Pamela. But when you look at the girl, it's a redhead with vines around her. It's got to be, some resemblance of Poison Ivy. And that's why she goes and takes this case and doesn't stop until she finds out that the Joker did it. And she tries to kill him. Now, the cops come to aid and say, no, we got our man. You don't have to kill him. We're going to take him to jail. And they kind of end the story abruptly there. I don't know if this story is supposed to continue. They sure leave it wide open for interpretation as to what happens next. But that was definitely the most interesting take, I think, on the character, because it's so different from what anything we've seen at all. She's not a psychiatrist. She doesn't do her normal thing. She's not really snitsy or sarcastic. She is, serious. She's focused on the task at hand, and she's actually trying to find the criminal and take them down herself. It's definitely a recommended read of mine. Then the last one I want to mention is a book that I actually just got done reading. Not even a comic. This is an actual book. It's really, really long. 347 pages, I believe you have to read. So if you're not much of a reader, I don't know what to tell you, because you're missing out on an absolutely excellent story, that being Harley Quinn Reckoning. Now, this story is only going to continue, as that is the first book of a trilogy which are set to release from this year to 2024, all around the same time here in spring. We're still going to have to wait a year to see where this story continues, but in this story we see an 18-year-old Harleen Quinzel kind of studying at this science thing. She's apparently wanted to go to college for some sort of science degree, so she's in between her gap year after her senior year of high school and before her freshman year of college, hoping that she can get a scholarship to Gotham University, because, she lives in the poor east end of Gotham City. She can't afford it. And what's interesting about this is it's still the same ditzy, sarcastic Harley Quinn, and she ends up forming this, feminist girl group. And I know some people be like, oh my god, feminist, why? Trust me, it's an interesting read. It definitely does show corruption of males in a lot of businesses, especially the scientific business. And throughout this time, the girls are trying to go out and they're trying to, figure out who did this, who did that, and who's worth punishing, and they call themselves the Reckoning. Her friends, Bernice, who ends up being her girlfriend, Bianca, I think there's this girl named Jasmine. There's a bunch of characters that pop up, and then later down the line they have to find out who killed their friend, who's killing these girls, who's taking these girls, and it's just an adventure. And just when you think that Harleen isn't going to get her scholarship, she gets her scholarship and now decides that she wants to become a psychiatrist because, a lot of the people she's around, had, some sort of problems in their life, and she always seemed to be good at talking things out and talking to them. She always seemed to have that sweet spot. There was this part in the book where Bernice asked Harleen to go see her sister in the Arkham Penitentiary because Bernice's sister was a victim of these attacks way back then, and she can't really say who did it because any recollection of that attack brings her PTSD to where she just like screams her lungs out a lot. So you kind of get to see it when she goes to Arkham Penitentiary, talks to Bernice's sister, and she kind of almost gets some sort of confession, but she doesn't get like screaming and all that kind of stuff. So it was like, that's when I think she realized that that was like her go-to. And it's interesting because Pamela Isley might be coming into the picture because she makes a cameo right at the end of the book when Harley kind of bumps into her and sees it's this like save the plants or save the environment type class. And it's going to be interesting to see how they connect those two now, since basically they're going to college together for two different things, sure, but now we're getting this different story where it's like, oh, okay, her and Ivy are around the same age, they're going to school together, so they're basically going to become best friends before they even have their powers and before their whole crime spree stuff. Plus, it's going to be interesting as she does have a teeny tiny interaction with the Joker. There's a whole different obsession with the Joker. She was trying to get like a DNA sample from him for this project she was doing, and of course she runs into him in this one scene. Of course she has to run into the Joker at some point when you're talking about stories like these, but I think eventually once we get to the third book, that's when we'll start to see her transform into the Harley Quinn character we've known. But this is definitely something way different and something that really caught my eye. And again, I know some people will be turned off by the whole feminist female empowerment thing, but it really does have a point out there that it's really trying to show, and I think it does it very well. The one thing I'll say, though, is in this book, all the guys are either horny or they're just fucking messed up. Like, that's basically what I get from this book, because there's a lot of talk about sex and kissing as well, which is, even though they're 18, they're supposed to be, you know, of that age, it's just still really weird hearing about that. It's like, I don't necessarily want to hear about that at all, but, you know, it's just in there because it's supposed to be part of the story in one way or another. But, yeah, that's just some of the interesting Harley Quinn adaptations that I've seen that you wouldn't even be used to at this point. Like, they don't necessarily fully follow the original story that was intended from 1992 when Bruce Timm and Paul Dini introduced her as a one-off, and then when they did give her an origin story, that was supposed to be the set-in-stone origin story. But the character became so interesting that we just keep making, you know, new stories about her, keeping the character kind of relevant in my eyes. So, yeah, you guys can tell me in the comments below, is there another adaptation of this character that you absolutely love that maybe I didn't mention, maybe I've never heard of it, or maybe it's just not my favorite adaptation? I would really be interested to see more of the adaptations of Harley Quinn herself. But until then, that's really all I have, so stay safe out there, wear your mask, get vaccinated, and I will catch you all in the next one.
And here you thought I was just another bubble-headed blonde bimbo. Well, the joke's on you. I'm not even a real blonde.